Tom Clark's 6M podcast is a Boink Studios production. And now, on with the show. Hey, what is up? Welcome to Tom Clark's 6M podcast. I'm your host, Tom Clark. And in this episode, I'm joined by co-hosts Troy Grant and James Luft. From the Marvel Cinematic Universe comes one of the most epic and popular villains of all time, a powerful god of mischief who finds himself out of his element and facing deletion at the hands of an authority over whom he cannot control and which seeks to destroy any trace of his very existence. We're talking about Loki. The Loki series was created by Michael Waldron and directed by Kate Herron and premiered on June 9, 2021. It is the third Marvel Comics series to air on the Disney Plus streaming service, following WandaVision and Captain America the Winter Soldier. Loki stars Tom Hiddleston in the title role as the Norse god of mischief, a role that he played in 6 previous MCU films. The 6-episode series takes place after the events of Avengers Endgame. In the film, the Avengers travel back in time to retrieve all 6 Infinity Stones in an effort to battle Thanos and undo the damage done when the Mad Titan used the Infinity Gauntlet to destroy half of all life on Earth. During the Avengers' stop at Stark Tower during the Battle of New York in 2012, the Tesseract inadvertently falls into the hands of Loki, who immediately disappears through a portal. This sets a chain of events that leads him to being apprehended by the TVA. The TVA is the Time Variance Authority, an unseen group that monitors the timeline running throughout all time and space. The TVA goes after variants who are created when the timeline branches off, going in different directions. The TVA sends in hunters who prune the variants responsible and resets the timeline back to the way it was before. The series also stars Sophia DiMartino as Sylvie, a mysterious character that Loki is forced to hunt throughout time, and Owen Wilson as Mobius, a TVA agent who acts as a foil to Loki throughout the majority of the series. Loki was met with rave reviews from both critics and fans alike. Disney Plus reported that the debut episode was the most watched series premiere in the history of the streaming service. The work done during the course of the show, including the dynamic character arcs, compelling storytelling, and future world building, lays the groundwork for the Marvel Cinematic Universe for years to come. And that's the lowdown on Loki. One of the best things about Marvel Comics, not just in terms of publications, in terms of the books themselves, but the entire universe, and translating into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, of which a lot of us have been fans for a lot of years now, is that their villains are hardly ever cut and dry. They're hardly ever black and white. They're hardly ever just cookie cutter sorts of villains, of bad guys, if you will, of heels on the pro wrestling vernacular. Oftentimes there's shades of gray. There's things to enjoy about the characters, about the villains specifically. There's things about them to love. So while you want to hate them, sometimes you can empathize with them. I'm reminded of Eric Killmonger in Black Panther. This guy was a straight-up killer, a straight-up murderer. There was nothing redeemable about Killmonger until you hear his story, and then suddenly your heart goes out to him. I'm also reminded of Baron Zemo. There was nothing remotely great about this guy, nothing remotely redeeming again about him either. Again, stone cold killer. He's set into motion the chain of events that led to Civil War, turned the Avengers against each other, forever changed that team for all time. But then again, when you hear Zemo's story, suddenly your heart goes out to him. It's the one thing I love. I love a lot of things about Marvel. As we've said before many times here on the show, kids, it's the third M. Okay? And that's just how it is. We're Marvel fans here. So there's a lot of things I love about this publisher, about the MCU as a whole. But again, the idea, the concept of, just as in reality, just as in everyday life, for the most part, a villain is not always a villain. There's layers, there's textures, there's more maybe going on there than what meets the eye. And we definitely have that with Loki. And the first time we see Loki in the MCU, we see him in Thor, okay? And from the beginning, we know he's going to be a villain, but we kind of want to like the guy. Tom Hiddleston does such a fantastic job in the character. We're going to get into a lot of that here today. But he just completely inhabits Loki. He is the character brought to life. But he is a villain. He may be a misunderstood villain. Yes, he's the god of mischief. Yes, he's a lot of different things. But at the end of the day, he's a lost soul trying to somehow not be alone. And that's what we're going to get to here on the program today. We will say this before we go any further. If you have not watched Loki the series, first of all, what's wrong with you? What rock have you been living under? Get with the program, dude. Come on, make this happen. But more importantly, if you've not watched the last episode of the series of Loki on Disney Plus, then stop what you're doing, go watch it, go enjoy it. You're going to thank me later. Trust me, this analysis will mean a lot more to you, okay? So, James, I'm going to pitch it right to you. Let's get to the meat on the bone here. What is your take on what we saw in the last episode of Loki? How does this hit you, man? Give me your reactions on it.
There was so many possibilities of who that could have been at the end, and it somehow managed to be all of them. Like, right. I thought, well, it's going to be He Who Remains, or it's going to be Kang, or it's going to be Immortus. And it was like an amalgam of He Who Remains and Immortus, wasn't it? But obviously, he didn't say the word, but he did, didn't he?
It's crazy. I'll be honest with you, Troy. I was jaded going into the last episode by Mark Bernardin on Kevin Smith's podcast. And I watched. I was catching up on Friday's. I think it was Friday or Saturday's show. So Loki hadn't come out yet, so they didn't spoil anything for him. They couldn't have. But Bernardin made the comment, "If it's Kang, I'll be disappointed." And Kevin Smith, who loves everything, is like, "Why would you say that? That'd be amazing." He's like, "Because I'm not invested in Kang. I'm not invested in him. I need it to be somebody I'm invested in." So Troy, I'm gonna be straight with you, man. I'm not disappointed, but when I saw it was Kang, I kind of thought, oh, God, I wish I'd never heard Mark Bernardin say that because now I'm jaded. Were you let down at all? Were you hoping maybe Mobius was somehow twisted? I mean, was it a letdown for you in the slightest?
From the off, I'm going to say I'm confused. I just don't know what's going on anymore. I came out of this with more questions than I went into it with. But that's not a bad thing. I enjoyed it. I wasn't disappointed. I did think from the very, very off, like episode 1, Mobius was somehow in there. Mobius was something to do with it. Mobius was a double agent, if you like, or something to do with the bigger picture. Turns out he's not. But I wasn't disappointed. Like I say, I was just confused. But not in a bad way. Not in a bad way. Like, it opens up so much. And that's why I wasn't disappointed. Because the possibilities are endless.
And in case any of you listening to this have not read the liner notes, spoiler alert, kids. We're spoiling the life out of this show. So if you haven't seen it yet, shame on you. If you haven't seen the episode yet, well, we just kind of ruined it for you. But so what we've been hearing in the combination with, I think Kang is the big bad here, which I'm think we all kind of heard that along the way. Everyone and their brother was talking about, well, this is going to set up Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness, much in the same way WandaVision is. Falcon and Winter Soldier, maybe not so much, but this is supposed to lead directly into it. Maybe not directly, but, maybe the biggest direction toward that film. I mean, we've got that for sure now. When you start throwing around the word multiverse, you got the Sony Spider-Man movie happening where everybody except the 60s animated Spider-Man, he may even show up pointing at everybody. Who are you? I'm him. No, you're not.
No, but you're not. Who are you?
Yes. What a way to kick it off. If that's the truth, man. And again, kids, spoilers. Hello, warning. We're going to get a season 2 of this show. I howled. That's what I howled over, for real. That's what I howled over, James.
Same.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I absolutely lost it. Because I was thinking, well, what can they possibly do in this post-credits? Because especially with how ambiguous the ending was, where it was like, wait, what? What's just happened?
Yeah.
And I think the next time we see Jonathan Majors in the MCU, he's going to be playing an entirely different version. Obviously he's a variant, but I think he's going to he's going to be a lot more stoic. He's going to be a lot more menacing.
Yeah.
Whereas this, it was almost like he was a Loki variant more than a Kang variant, because he was so like flamboyant and so
flamboyant, charismatic. It was almost like a kind of like a borderline comedy, panto, like theatrical kind of thing, and it was hilarious. Like I was all in for it.
Yeah.
But I thought, we see this guy again, he's not going to be like that. No chance.
Yeah. Like that reveal where he was just sat there grinning like a Cheshire cat eating an apple.
just
casually. And he's like, oh yeah, you've all fallen into my plan.
Yeah.
Come into my office, it's fine.
Step into my office.
And he can anticipate their moves and they can't kill him. And he's moving around through time and everything. And like he's not worried, he's not stressed. Why should he be? And basically it all boils down to, look, you got two options. You can kill me. And much worse than me will show up, or you can just take over and run this and it'll be fine. But either way, I'm going to be gone. So do your worst. And man alive. Again, what a way to end it. And I'll go back to the idea of the minute I saw him, and I didn't know it was Kang, but I knew who was going to play him in the film, in Doctor Strange film. And the minute the doors open, I was like, crap. Again, not crazy disappointed, but just like, I kind of wanted it to be another Loki. I kind of wanted it to be another Loki. You know what I mean? Maybe an older Tom Hiddleston or a younger, or I don't know, something.
Richard E. Grant again.
Oh, please. Love that guy.
more of that.
And who says the comic book appropriate costume doesn't play on TV? I loved it.
Loved it. So good.
Yeah.
Of course, it's not so you're saying like, Kang will play into the multiverse of madness and Doctor Strange, etc. Let's not forget that Kang is also meant to be the big bad in Ant-Man 3.
That's right.
As well. And that's
Quantumania.
Huge. Yeah. That's it. Quantumania. I can't remember what it was called.
It just sounds like a Who album, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Electric Boogaloo. I don't know.
I mean, they really had to ramp up the pace of everything, didn't they? Because the release schedule in the next sort of like not even 12 months is insane. Like
there's a lot coming out.
I looked because I was like, when's Quantumania out? And it's like February 23.
Yeah.
2023, not the 23rd. But in that year space, they've got Thor: Love and Thunder coming out. They've got Doctor Strange. They've got
Spider-Man.
A multitude of TV shows as well. They've got
Guardians,
the Marvels, Guardians 3, I think, squeezed in there. Yeah. So there's a lot of groundwork that they can actually evolve, like develop. And now they've got the whole thing. Oh yeah, there's a million different variants of Kang. There's going to be a multiversal war. This is probably going to lead to Secret Wars as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which I'm fine with.
I feel like this one episode has set up like the next 10 years of Marvel films. Like it's huge. It's not just a self-contained thing within the TV series. It's not just, we've introduced this character. And there's a film coming out, he'll be in that film as well. And that'll be it. Like this plays into every single film and TV show and animation, whatever it is that they're bringing out, decide to bring out, whatever's in the pipeline for this. It's the kind of that next, I know we're in kind of like phase 4 essentially, but that second 10-year phase of Marvel stuff, it's huge, massive.
What's funny is that after Endgame, I kind of thought, well, and like, all right, so the thing is, I was like, okay, Endgame's over. I know they're not done. I know it's not over. Thank goodness, because I'm so in the back for this stuff, man. I can't even tell you. So I know it's not over, but then I thought, how are you going to do better than Thanos? And don't listen, I don't want to hear about, Galactus, Tom. Shut up. Stop. I don't. and I know if anybody can do it and make it work and make you go, oh my God, look at that. It's them and they can do it. They can totally do it, of course. And I got faith in them because why not? But I don't think I care to see him. And I was like, how are you going to do bigger and better than Thanos? But they figured it out because, man, like you said, Troy, they just set up 10 years with this show. There's so much more coming. I almost forgot Thanos until he mentioned to Loki, you could win. You want to win? How about you kill Thanos? It's like, what? Oh my God, that's awesome. I kind of want to go back and see that now. I want to see that movie now,
Yeah.
And it almost felt like, though, him dangling those things in front of Loki, it felt like he was trying to, like, out trick the trickster, though, the whole time. He was so, like, untrustworthy the whole time. Like, even down to when he's shown, like, his whole history, he's like, I mean, I'm the devil, There's a million more of me if you kill me.
Right.
I think to go back to Galactus, I think they've got better villains they can use before him, and then when Galactus shows up, it should be like the big, oh my God, this is happening now moment.
Yeah.
Like
extinction level boss.
Yeah, like Kang showing up after Thanos makes sense, because Kang's opening up the multiverse, which is what they've needed to do for a while, especially to kind of explain characters like Fantastic Four, even Galactus, X-Men. And I think there's more compelling stuff they could do with someone like Doctor Doom as well before we get Galactus.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Is there a and I say in one breath I'm in the back for this stuff, because I am. I think I've told you guys this before. When I was growing up, we had no Marvel films. There was nothing. We had the first Superman and the sequels, and it wasn't until Batman in '89 and we're like, oh my God, this can look like this now. Holy crap! And then nothing from Marvel, and still nothing from Marvel, and then Blade just tore the lid off everything and opened the whole world up for that company. So yes, I'm still in the back for this stuff. However, on the flip side of that, because I often play devil's advocate even on my own stuff, I'm sitting here thinking, okay, so you got Thanos, and then Kang, and then are we multiverse, and then Galactus? At what point do we flip back down to guys robbing old ladies in a back alley, and we've got, you see what I'm saying? Are we ever going to bring it back to
ground it a bit more?
Yeah. Is there a fear that at some point it could get maybe so big it's unwieldy, or we just like, hey, just wait and see how it goes? They've never let us down, at least not me.
No, I think like I know the Netflix Marvel thing is kind of not dead in the water, because there's there's talk of it, like I forget his name, guy that plays Daredevil,
Charlie Cox,
reprising his role in the next Spider-Man film. And I think they've got those opportunities now, because they're starting to build something really special with these episodic things, with these TV series. So even if the films just kind of go off on a tangent, and just be like, okay, well, they're so far removed, and that's fine. There's the option of grounding them a bit more with stuff like the TV series, like they did with, I say grounded, like, Luke Cage was a guy that could like just absorb bullets. But for Marvel, that's as grounded as it gets, isn't it? Really, like, and a blind lawyer. But like, there's still those options, I think, there. And the fact that there's, I don't know if it's been confirmed or not, but the fact that Matt Murdock's character is kind of reprising that and being in Spider-Man, for me, says, well, they're not done with that character yet. And that's a way that we can kind of bring things back around, remind people that, people, like, there are grannies still getting robbed, and there are people on ground level, if you like, that are still there doing that sort of thing.
Wouldn't it be interesting? And I don't know if we'll ever get here, but wouldn't it be interesting to have a scene where you have, and I say the Avengers, but Tony and Steve aren't there, but at least some semblance of some heroes in a room, and then they're having a conversation. When the camera pans over to the other side of the room, it's Cage, it's Jessica, it's Matt, it's Danny Rand, and they're like, "Look, you guys got your hands full. We'll clean up the stuff down here. No worries." Like, dude, that's awesome.
Yeah,
they have the opportunity to do that with like some of these TV shows coming out, though. Like She-Hulk is very much like street level, isn't she? And they could introduce Daredevil to that, because they're both lawyers.
Isn't it Ironheart as well?
Yes,
Ironheart. Yeah, it's called Suit Wars, isn't it, or Armor Wars?
Is it Armor Wars?
Armor Wars, yeah.
Okay.
It's because that could also introduce Iron Lad, who's another Kang variant. And it would make sense now they've called it Armor Wars and not just Ironheart. And there's the Hawkeye one. There's Miss Marvel's getting one before she goes into the Marvels film. There's plenty of like sort of street level, and it's also a cool way to like add a bit more flesh on the bone of characters, I think, because you get like the origin story for 20 minutes in like a film, whereas you can get it for like 3 or 4 episodes in a TV show. And that's 4 hours of like building this character to then make you want to invest into them.
Yeah, it's funny because one of the, you know, we've talked about DC here on the show multiple times. Warner Brothers, the whole idea of it's the extended universe, and we gotta do this stuff, and we'll go review or a DC property or DC film, and we come away from it like, oh, and they just can't seem to put their heads together, and that we don't know what they're doing over there. But there's something to be said for their TV series, their TV universe. 9 times out of 10 knocks it out of the park because they have time for character development. We don't seem to have that problem in the MCU, but you do have multiple films over multiple years to build those characters instead of just saying, see that dude with the S on his chest? He can like lift a bunch of stuff and you're going to love him. And man, his hair is perfect. His lips messed up, but you're going to love him. He's awesome. And then you're like, yeah, I don't love him. The actor, cool, but I don't love this. But like multiple films over years and you can get, you know, connected. I mean, there's something to be said for TV being an entire season where by the end of it, it really matters to you if that show's coming back. Whereas if you walk out of the theater going, God, I wasted $15 on that. I mean, that's a totally different experience right there.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I don't know how DC, like, I know we're talking about Loki and Marvel, but it's crazy, like how DC feel like they seem to have got it so wrong. And yet you say with the TV series, like I've watched loads of their TV series, I've been fully invested in it.
Yeah.
And loved it. And like, how does that not translate over to the big screen when you've got such iconic characters within that DC, like arguably some of them more iconic than, you know, the biggest Marvel ones like Batman, Superman. Like, how do you mess that up? It's crazy. And it's not like this is some like, I don't know, like bunch of students, like production company, film house making it. This is Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers have been putting out films for years, and it's mad.
Yeah.
I think the main thing with that is that Marvel were smart enough to have a tonal shift. So we got like the first Iron Man, we got Captain America, the first Avenger, we got Thor, we got Dark World, we got Iron Man 2. And then after Iron Man 3, they kind of shifted it with Guardians and made them a little bit more lighthearted, a little bit more sort of like not as serious, not as like doom and gloom. Whereas you get the DC ones, and a lot of the time they've got the same filter on with like the brown and grey, and they've got the same like dark brooding characters, and they're trying to make it gritty and realistic, like the Christopher Nolan films, which as a contained thing works. As a universe, not so much, because sometimes you need that little palate cleanser like Guardians of the Galaxy was to the MCU.
Yeah.
To sort of keep yourself like grounded and not go, geez, this is like really morbid. And that's like, I think DC have figured that out too little too late with like stuff like Shazam.
Yeah.
Right.
Where it's real lighthearted, but it's like, but we just had like all this like gloomy stuff with Superman and Batman.
Doom, doom, gloom, gritty, dark, death, murder. I mentioned death and murder, and gloom and doom, and everything's on fire in every film. Like Shazam's the only film where everything's not on fire. Like you would think at some point these characters would turn around and go, dude, it's on fire again here. What are we doing wrong? You know?
Yeah, that's it.
Man, talk to me, Troy, about as wrestling fans who may be listening, hopefully are listening, you guys will get this reference. Talk to me about the amazing face turn that we got from Loki. Fully realized at the end of this show, we're sitting there going, I wonder if he's going to do it again. At that point when he suggested, you can't trust him. And she's like, I can't trust you. And I'm like, not this Loki. That's my guy, right? That's my dude, man. He's full. No, don't even talk about that.
No, don't do this. They're
right.
Like, it's okay.
Full face turn. I mean, you could make the case that this is a much more well-rounded Loki than maybe the one that sacrificed himself to Thanos, or maybe on the same level, perhaps. What do you think?
It just, I don't like it. there's so much kind of development of that of the character throughout this series, but what's mad is because you've only seen him kind of betray and backstab throughout every film. There was still a little part of me at the end of that last episode where I was like, he's in this for himself, isn't he? And I was like, no, he's fine. No, we love him. We've grown to love him. It's okay.
Yes.
And there was the line that exchange where he said, he was just like, you can't trust anyone and I can never be trusted. And it was just, that whole thing there. But it was, that for me was the moment where he kind of realized, for me, it twigged and it clicked. I was like, okay, that's the full face turn. And it wasn't the sacrifice in Endgame, but for me, it felt like more of like a 180 than that. That was kind of in Endgame, it was a very much kind of in the moment snap decision. This was the culmination of like 5, 6 now episodes of really learning everything, not just about himself, but everyone around him and how his actions have impacted so much and forming this bond as well. And yeah, it's incredible.
Jay, that the scene that Troy's referring to, Jay, when he grabs Sylvie and he says to her, he says, stop. I think he says it 3 times.
Yeah.
You give that to any other actor and maybe you're going, all right, we get it, move on. But in Tom Hiddleston's hands, that was like Oscar worthy, in my opinion. I'm like, I felt that like in my guts, man, when he did that. And I was like, oh my God, this is so good. Like he's just only him looking in her eyes and telling her stop and just calming her down, calming the situation. I mean, he basically said to her, I've been where you are. I know what this feels like. I mean, he's no longer that guy, Jay. That I love that so much, man. Huge evolution for him.
Yeah, like he really, it was as if he kind of knew already the gravity of the situation. Like if she kills him and she sees red, like there's going to be a lot more worse things to deal with than just one of these guys. And he was trying to like be the grounding force of that. And when she tricked him at the end, it was like a gut punch as well. I was just like, oh man, no, couldn't believe it.
Right. You could make the case and say, look, if he had just stuck with Thor, if he had just stuck with his freaking brother, I don't know that Thor ever technically betrayed him. I mean, to live your entire existence for thousands of years, these guys have lived supposedly. So to live that long and to be in the frame of mind, can't trust him. Can't trust anybody. Nope. Don't talk to me. I can't trust you. I'm like, after years of that, like it's the company you keep. Like had he just went another direction, another way, he and Thor would have been tight BFF and he never would have had that. Like how many people walking around right now, with the exception of, Stone Cold Steve Austin, right? Literally can't trust anybody, but that's where he is until the end of the show or at the end of this first season when he trusts Sylvie. And plus the overall driving narrative for this show, for this character is, I don't want to be alone anymore. This sucks. Being isolated is the worst. And I don't want to go back to that because he sees he did it to himself, really. It's crazy.
I mean, we were all isolated for a whole year last year with COVID, and that sucked. Imagine being isolated for thousands of years.
Yeah.
Oh, man. But it's also, you say, like, Sylvie's the only person that he's kind of learned to trust and almost wants to let someone in. But it's also the same with Mobius as well. There's in the episode before where they have that hug and that kind of embrace. And I was just like, oh, God, that's hit me there. That's nice to see. That's good to see. But yeah, it's...
Oh, go on.
No, you're okay.
Well, I'll let you finish that actually because I'm going to be kind of moving it along to something else, but still.
No, it was just more so just reiterating kind of how nice that was and just having that whole, like, that for me was the start of that kind of 180 turn where throughout the whole film there was this distrust and, Mobius was trying to at times give him the kind of benefit of the doubt and allow him to be truthful, and he wasn't. And so that trust then kept going out of the window. And then I think when they both realized the kind of gravity of the situation and Mobius realize that actually he was telling me the truth, and that embrace where it was like, we may not see each other again. And it was just lovely. It was really, really nice.
Yeah, one thing that was really cool with Mobius as well was the whole him kind of having that sort of like nice little dream about just driving the jet ski on a lake, and then it's like when the realization that's probably the life that he was took from to become a variant.
Yeah,
right? And we didn't get that at the end of this series, and the fact as well that like he was fully rebelling against the thing that he's trusted in. It was like almost as if a role reversal between him and Loki to a degree.
Yeah.
Because he was more rebellious, and Loki was more like trusting of people and a bit more fallen.
Whereas the first
episode, need to do the right thing.
Polar opposite. Yeah, I've not thought of it like that at all. Yeah. The post-credit scene should have been Mobius on the jet ski just riding off into the sunset.
Oh, man. All right, so let's say this show only gets 2 seasons. That's my hope for the end of season 2.
Yeah.
It's got to be.
Absolutely.
That he gets back.
Or that's the opening scene of season
that would be good too.
Yeah.
So like the Baywatch music, I don't know.
like a flashback.
Yeah. Starts with a flashback
on a jet
That's
ski.
Great because supposedly now, from what we gather at the end of this episode, they've all forgotten. Time has been twisted, it's branched, and they have no memory of Loki, which means they don't remember anything because there's a statue where it was the Timekeepers, now it's Kang. Yeah. So that's the guy they know, or whatever he's calling himself. But it's like, okay, so when he says, well, do you work? Where do you work? And he's like, what? And I'm like, oh my God, they don't know who he is. That's so awesome.
I leapt off my sofa when that happened. Like, like, what's gone on? How do they not know? Where are we now?
The way they shot that whole reveal as well was incredible. Like with Mobius and I can't remember the name now. The main
B9, B19 or
B9? B15.
B15.
With
either way, those two like reuniting and then going, well, there goes the time stream, and then Loki finding them and then them being like, who are you? It was just like, whoa, what the hell's just happened so quickly? And it was shot as if it had like nothing had changed. Even like you didn't even notice that Mobius wasn't like disheveled anymore like he was in Ravonna's office.
Oh, of course.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. And the hunter in question is B15.
B15.
Yeah.
Portrayed by Wunmi Masaku. And I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that, who did a great job. And what I love about her, and I don't want this to sound any kind of way, but when you look at her, you're thinking, well, she's what, but man, she turned out to be a major player in this, like more so than you might imagine. I love that you can, again, in this universe, we take, of course, we've got the pretty people and we've got the beautiful people, but then we've got the normal looking Joes and Janes who are just like, they're an important part of this story too.
Yeah.
I love that we can sort of, not just be inclusive with different backgrounds and cultural and all, and I'm totally with that. But like, here's the fat guy, here's the thin guy, that kind of thing. We got fat Thor, for God's sake. I'm just saying. So, but talk about the hunters in this show, man. I mean, I'm sure there's some significance to the prefix to the B, and if there is, I've missed it. I'm not sure what the letters stand for. It's almost like since they're variants, they can't be A, they would be B because they're not A, which I don't know if that's the thought or not, but that's kind of in my head what that means. I mean, they seem like interdimensional cops or something,
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't actually really elaborate on that, did they, too much?
No, I don't think so.
No, I didn't get much from it either.
A lot of humor in this show, as we expect. Hiddleston is completely in his element. He is absolutely, I mean, I will gush over this guy till the end because he's so good. I mean, just as much as RDJ was born to play Tony Stark, Chris Evans born to play Captain America, you would have to say that Tom Hiddleston is absolutely born to play Loki. I don't know who else on the planet could have done it anywhere near the way he does.
No.
It's obvious he's having fun. We have fun with him because he's so good at what he does. I mean, just watching him in the first couple of episodes where he has no control. It's a Loki unlike anything we've ever seen because he has no power, no magic, no illusion, no control. And Owen's just kind of laughing at him all the way through it. That's not
seeing through his BS the whole time.
Yes, so good. So good, man.
Yeah, he's super. I remember I can't remember who put it up. I can't remember if it was Tom Hiddleston or Chris Hemsworth. But they put a picture up on their Instagram only a couple of weeks ago, and it was the both of them sat at a table with the script for the first Thor movie, and the headline from the magazine or newspaper it was in was like Marvel take a gamble on 2 unknown actors or something like that, looking all fresh faced and stuff. I'm like, if only you knew,
right?
Like, look where we are now. But I'll find the picture. I'll drop it to you guys later. But yeah, or anyone listening, like look up that picture. But the headline was almost like, who are these 2 young skids? Like, they're complete unknowns. And this is at the time when, like, obviously the early days of the MCU, but it was starting to get the attention. It was starting to build the traction, and obviously Thor's a very, very much loved character, and these 2 guys just being like, who are these? Some English guy and some Aussie guy, and like kind of the picture makes them look very kind of like wet behind the ears, and you're just like, you're not expecting much from this, but here we are sat doing a podcast about one of them and how good he is.
And what's funny is Hiddleston originally read for Thor, so in a different timeline, a different reality. Multiverse talk here, kids. We're looking at Tom Hiddleston as Thor and Chris Hemsworth maybe not even being around or being somebody else. That blows my mind just to even ponder that. I mean, I would sit here and say, well, he's perfect for Loki and he's a villain. But I'm like, you've seen this guy act. Nah, I'm pretty sure he could play any one of the Avengers. I'm pretty sure he could play David Banner or Bruce Banner and absolutely pull it off. I'm convinced this guy could do anything he wanted to do.
Yeah.
What about the idea that this show is connected? They mention the Avengers. Of course, they talk about Thor. We get to see Lady Sif, which was freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Loki didn't seem to think so because he kept, taking it downstairs, in the family jewels, as they say.
Hemsworth was in the last episode, not the final episode, the last one. He voiced Throg, didn't he?
Throg, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, and was it?
And they'd actually done a fight scene which got deleted, which he'd voiced him for as well.
That's great.
Amazing.
That's great. The fact that this kind of like it's connected, but it's not connected. It's kind of its own thing. James, do you think you need that bit of distance from the MCU in order to tell this story? Because if you get bogged down too much in, well, this just happened 20 minutes ago in New York. If you do that too much, is that too distracting for the audience, maybe?
I think they did a really good job in like kind of covering that in the first episode when they were like time works differently here.
Right.
I get the impression that the Void and essentially where the TVA are based is the city that we saw in Ant-Man, or was it Ant-Man and the Wasp? One of them, anyway, when he's in the quantum realm, we see the little city.
Oh,
I get the impression it's that, and that's why time moves differently, because 5 hours was 5 years for Scott Lang when he was stuck in the quantum realm.
Yeah,
which would explain why Loki's able to kind of go to all these different time zones from there. I think Quantumania is going to be the key to a lot of the stuff we're going to understand from Loki. And I wouldn't even be surprised if Loki's shown up in Quantumania.
Ooh.
No, I wouldn't.
He's kind of interwoven himself into it now.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the moment when Thor lays eyes on him and immediately is ticked off. You weren't dead all along. What's going on? And just, but it's not the same Loki that he knew. It's like we said, it's a babyface Loki, which Thor's never really dealt with before.
Or anytime he thought he's dealt with him, it definitely wasn't.
Right, yeah.
Like babyface for all but a moment.
Yeah.
He's absolutely not going to trust him.
No chance.
No matter how hard he tries.
And maybe the roles will be reversed where like Thor's just sitting there eyeballing him going, I know I can't trust him. And the whole time Loki's like, would you just stop? And like it's completely reversed now. Oh, that'd be so much fun.
That's the other thing. Like, should that happen, that whole story, like little self-contained story arc in itself, where it's him building trust. And having watched Loki, you're just like, well, Loki's done a full 180. Like, we know he's fine. He's not going to go back. He's not going to turn. But watching how they then build that brothership back up, if you like, that bond of trust again, when Thor's had his fingers burnt so many times before.
And here's something that was revealed during the course of this show. That when Loki saw sort of like, this is your life, like a flashback, all right, and he got to see like the greatest hits and misses of his life played out before him on a screen. He realized he was the reason that his mother was killed. Now, did the Loki that we knew before know that? Am I missing that? Or I don't know that he knew that it was his fault that she got killed.
Yeah, I don't think he did either.
I don't think he knew.
Nah, I don't.
So that's why I suggested earlier, maybe this Loki is more well-rounded because he's come to grips with what he did. He has the knowledge that, good God, I was a bad person. What was I thinking? Like, had he just, let me set aside my crap with Thor for 5 minutes. Had he just not said the thing to the guy, his mother would probably still be alive. It was his freaking fault. And now he's got to live with that for the rest of his life, whatever that means. Tom Clark's 6M podcast is sponsored in part by Radius Law Group. Every day, Radius helps individuals, families, small businesses, and nonprofit organizations throughout North Carolina, Florida, and Pennsylvania resolve their legal issues by providing effective legal counsel in the areas of estate planning, as well as elder law and Medicaid. Radius Law holds the radical belief that working with a lawyer can indeed be enjoyable. So give them a call at 1-800-519-5667 for more information and tell them that Tom Clark's 6M podcast sent you. Anytime you involve time travel in any kind of story or multi-dimensions, that's why I said earlier about my subtle fear that it gets too unwieldy at some point, which I don't want it to be. Trust me, I'm having so much fun watching this stuff. We've got to, if we're going to gush about anybody besides Tom Hiddleston and Owen Wilson and the Hunters, obviously, we've got to gush about Sophia DiMartino as Sylvie. Sylvie.
Yeah.
Holy crap. I mean,
so good.
The rumors of a female Loki, even before the show started. Oh, what if there's a female Loki? And as soon as like it's a variant, oh my God, what if it's and then bam, everybody ran with it. How happy were you guys to see that happen? How cool is she in this freaking show, man?
She was brilliant. It felt like she was kind of a cross of like female Loki and Enchantress a bit. It felt one thing like I was talking before about Immortus and He Who Remains being kind of like merged together as like one character, and obviously she's also been merged together as female Loki and Enchantress. Like obviously she had a lot of the powers, and she looked a bit more like Enchantress than female Loki. But yeah, she was brilliant. Absolutely encapsulated the way like Tom Hiddleston's played Loki as well, and even some of like the little mannerisms she was doing. It was like you could tell she'd studied him being Loki in previous films.
Yeah,
brilliant.
And it's funny because she's been on her own a lot longer than he has. For generations, apparently, she's been in prison by the TVA. And so, of course, she's not... It's funny because, like, on one hand, you say, well, of course, she's not going to trust as much as Loki would because Loki's already been there. But you could also say, wait, she's been here longer than he has, and yet he's farther along than she is. It's odd how the whole dynamic between these two changed. Troy, what do you think about the fact that these two are... I don't want to say in love, but connected? He's obviously smitten with her, but it's kind of him anyway. Is this a weird sort of, Loki could only love himself? Because they didn't really say that. I mean,
I know a lot of people that love themselves, so it's not beyond the realms of.
Hey, we had a wackadoodle leader in chief over here in this country at one point who was infatuated with himself. I'm just saying. So
I have no idea who you're talking about.
He got pruned. I think he got pruned. So that's awesome.
Oh dear. What was your original question? We got sidetracked. I forgot.
Everything's forgotten as soon as we mention the demigod. You know what I mean? So,
Chris Jericho.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. That's demogod, right? There you go. This whole idea that Loki is kind of falling for Sylvie, but it's him. Is it the whole notion goes back to maybe Loki could only really love himself? Is that what we're looking at here?
I feel like it is. I thought it was really, really odd and weird, but the more I thought about it, was just, well, we've only been shown, like, Loki has only been portrayed as someone that kind of loves himself, doesn't trust anyone else, and has always been comfortable in his own company. So it makes perfect sense that he falls essentially for himself.
Weird.
It's very, very weird, but also, if you think about it, like I say, like how he's been portrayed as a character and shown, like, it then makes perfect sense. As weird as it is to see it play out on TV, it makes perfect sense.
he's a very, like, been played out as such a narcissistic character that it's the only way he could have, like, had any kind of romantic arc in the MCU, as if it was with a clone of himself or a variant of himself.
Yeah, because no one else would really be able to trust him. No one would. Like, and plus it would have to be someone of his own kind. It would have to be someone that's, the whole idea of Thor falling in love with Jane Foster is fine, but, like, Jane Foster's going to die eventually. I mean, we don't know what they're going to do in the new Thor flick. Maybe she'll live forever now because she's maybe going to become Thor. We'll see what happens.
That way.
Yeah. But, like, the whole idea of, well, you can follow everything you want to, but you're going to still be here and maybe she won't. So, like, and plus he's already over that anyway. He's lived for a long time. So maybe the thought is, hey, she might be here tomorrow instead of one day dying out. I mean, it is a very odd thing to even think about. But honestly, partway through their relationship together, you don't really, I can't say I forgot who she was, but it kind of didn't matter to me anymore because they were so good together on scene. It was awesome. A lot of chemistry.
Yeah. Do you know what? It might surprise you here. So when the first couple of episodes where they were alluding to there's someone we're chasing. There's someone that's causing all these shenanigans. And we eventually got the reveal. My first reaction, I was a little disappointed, like slightly disappointed. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll see where this goes. And she absolutely grew on me, like, as the character and her own story, her own reasons for doing what she was doing, but also then her interactions with Loki and their then subsequent kind of, like, relationship and stuff like that. But I wasn't, like, from the off, like, I wasn't totally sold. And it was almost, for me, it was a little bit anticlimactic. I'm now eating an entire serving of my own words because I'm over the moon with her and she was absolutely incredible.
Was it a safe choice to go with female Loki instead of doing something different? How about the young kid who was also Loki that supposedly killed his brother? That would have been interesting.
Yeah.
Completely changes the show, but it goes back to an idea of a father-son dynamic, which Loki also struggles with. He could have become a surrogate father to himself, which would have been weird, but, like, I don't know. I think they could have made that work too. Would have been interesting.
Yeah, it would have done. There's many avenues they could have gone down with it, and I think it was fun that we then saw these various iterations of Loki later on, like a few episodes after the introduction of Sylvie. But it was. I don't want to say it's a safe bet because I don't want to feel like I'm crapping on it.
Right.
But it was, it was a safe choice, but it was one that played off well eventually, and it paid its due diligence, if you like. But she was just really, really good, and I read something about her the other day. She'd just given birth as the series started filming.
Wow.
So in between shots, her outfit she designed so she could then go off set and breastfeed her child in between shots. So she was able to just unzip from like a certain point here. So she customized her whole outfit so she was able to do that during filming, which is incredible.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Dedication to your craft here, kids. That's what that is. Yeah, it's a different show. I don't know what I expected going into this. I expected it to be awesome because Hiddleston is so good at what he does. What about the whole culture of what they have there? It feels like a very retro 1950s. All the guys are in ties. It's a very dated environment. Like it's all could have took place in the 1950s America with greased back hair and horn rimmed glasses, and everybody's sort of like no one's really cursing, and it's like the commercials they play, the ads they play, like the instructional videos they play for the TVA members of the TVA is all very retro and kind of old school. It's funny how they decided to go with that aesthetic. It's crazy.
Yeah, I liked it, and I thought it felt like there's initial few episodes of WandaVision where it was a bit of a throwback, and I don't know if it's because it definitely is. It's because I obviously watched WandaVision and saw they'd gone through these different kind of timelines, and knew that Loki would also be getting involved with various timelines, and thought, are we going to see a similar kind of like tonal change and contrast, and having these different kind of eras that it's set in? But obviously it stayed where it was. And whilst I don't think I can't remember if they identified specifically when it was, like you say, it had this really old kind of like retro feel, like everything down to the clothes that they wore, the desks that they worked on, the computers that they worked on, the stylization of the videos that were shown. When Loki first comes into the TVA, and he's shown that video of kind of who the TVA are and what they do and stuff, and everything was very old and kind of classic looking. And even when you went into what's her name, Thingy's office towards the end.
We kind of consider her to be sort of a second in command.
Yeah, I forget her name.
Ravonna Renslayer.
That's it.
Renslayer. That's it. Renslayer.
She's very important in the
office. Yes, her office setup, everything there, just felt very. Do you know what vibes I got from it? A little bit. If you've played the game BioShock, those sort of vibes from it.
Right.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah,
very Art Deco.
Art Deco.
Yeah.
That's it.
Big evil-looking statues.
That's it. Yeah. But yeah, like aesthetic, like visually aesthetic, like I like that setting. I thought it was quite cool, and it's nice. It's refreshing because you watch, say, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, like it's now, it's current, and it's of its time. It's hard to place where Loki's set. Obviously, WandaVision is set all over the place. And yeah, it was cool. And to be fair, there's very few times that they deviated away from that. Like there were scenes where they went back to various people's past. So there's a bit where Sylvie is talking to one of the other hunters, the one that they then prune. I forget her name, but it's when they first kind of twig I forget her name.
I know,
but it's the scene where they're sat in the bar and they're having the drink as she's trying to kind of tap in. So there's not many times where they kind of go away from that setting of the TVA, but then you're always reminded of the kind of the aesthetic of the TVA, because whilst everything around them is different, their clothing and everything is still very much of that. So yeah, it was cool. I really liked the stylization of that.
Yeah, it's a very odd combo to have, but you got to have something. I like that they chose to at least give the place style. So it did feel like sort of a living, breathing entity. So, Jay, tell me something. Could you have imagined in a million years that we could get a guy, an older dude, rocking the classic Loki attire with the shorts outside on the tights. Cloth, no accentuated muscles, no padded suits here, no armor, and he just as if it were a play in the local community theater group, and he freaking killed it. Richard E. Grant?
Yes.
As the classic Loki. Holy God, how good was this guy?
I mean, Tom Hiddleston's just a young Richard E. Grant.
Yeah,
he literally is. If it was revealed he was his son tomorrow, I wouldn't be surprised. He absolutely nailed this. I love there was a lot of little details, like obviously because he was old Loki, he just looked tired all the time.
Yes,
and even like his costume, like it was all like weathered and like beaten up, and there was like all marks all over it and dust covering it. It was like it just nailed it perfectly, even to the point. Did you see the theory that was kind of floating around the internet last week before this episode come out? No. Because he was talking about tricking Thanos into thinking he was like dust particles, and when he got killed, when they revealed the castle, there was like just debris floating around the castle, and there was a theory that he's done it again. But obviously, there was enough smoke to be fire that it was Kang. Like,
right.
There was so much in that episode where it's like, this can't be Kang at this point. But even then, as soon as I read that, I was like, I'd love that if that was the case. I would absolutely love that if that was the case.
He's so good. It's almost like when they get pruning and end up in the void. It's like the Island of Misfit Toys, where you've got these characters that nobody wants anything to do with. They're trouble. They're defective. They don't work. They've exiled them all to this terrible existence. And I think there's one thing we can take away from this show, kids, is that Lokis tend to do very bad things. And there's God knows how many Lokis there are. There's a ton of them. We get President Loki, which is the coolest freaking thing ever.
With the badge. Amazing.
It's great. He's got that smile, and we've got, I think that's cooler than Throg, in my opinion. I think Throg's great, but like little things like the Thanos copter, which everybody went banana about. And it's like, I saw the one reference. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I missed it. And then I going through my Twitter feed and there's 6,000 references. I'm like, how many of you people even knew what the Thanos copter was until you saw it today? And everybody said, oh, this is great. I'm like, shut up. You don't think it's great. You're just, So I've got to ask you guys this, because along the way, we get the weird Twitter stuff, which happens with everything good, which is why we can't have anything good. Twitter just wants to set fire to it. Kind of like DC Universe. Everything's on fire, okay? But the whole time it's like, well, this episode was boring. Why? Well, because they just sat around and talked a lot. And I'm like, do you people have to have explosions and stuff every 2 seconds? Like, dialogue it's part of characterization. It's about context. It's about nailing down, knowing what the characters' motivations are, where they have been, where they are now, where they're going. Dialogue's important. I mean, what sets Marvel apart, again, as I said before, from everybody else out there, they care about fleshing out their characters. I didn't have heartburn at all over the couple of episodes that kind of lagged. Did you guys pick up on that yourselves at all through this show?
No. I'm like, go on, Jake. No, you go ahead.
I thought it was, every episode was better than the last for me. It was that good.
I agree.
It built up to such a really nice crescendo that it's very hard these days to get a cliffhanger where you're like, I need more now. Mm-hmm. And I need more now. I need more Loki. I need season 2 right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. I am like, as a filmmaker and as a media producer and someone that has to write scripts for a living and build narrative and characters, but for me in a very short space of time, 5 or 6 minutes, not an hour-long episode, that's key. Like, that detail there, that dialogue, that character building, that narrative, like driven stuff is just, yeah. And if you don't like dialogue, there's plenty of other Marvel films you can watch where it's like crash, bang, wallop, explosions all the time. But this series is telling such a story from someone who's come from crash, bang, wallop, chaos to actually finding themselves and realizing that their purpose isn't to cause all of that, but actually like this full kind of turn. And without that dialogue, that doesn't happen. Without that conversation between him and Sylvie, between him and Mobius, him and anyone else, that character development doesn't happen. And it was absolutely key, and it didn't tire for me at all whatsoever, and very much echo what Jay says. For me, it went strength to strength in episode, and a huge part of that was the dialogue, was the conversation, was the storytelling through conversation and through words rather than through visuals and effects.
So, Jay, I'm curious because I'm sitting here reflecting on this show and I'm reflecting on this character and the massive change he underwent. And as I spoke before about Thor, for years we got why can't you why do you always have to do this, brother? Why can't we just come home and then just be my brother and just love me and I love you and let's just go see father, let's just be a family. If you look at that now in hindsight, it almost feels like, God, ease up on the guy. Jeez, we get it. You love him. All right, cool. Could Loki have come to this point of going 180 with that constantly? And even though Thor meant well, but in this direction, he got there on his own. The TVA wasn't forcing him to come full circle. They didn't care if he got. They're like, oh, we'll just prune you. I don't care. Screw this guy. And no one wanted him there. And Mobius only wanted to use him. And no one cared about this guy at all. He got there where he got on his own, of his own accord. It's almost like going, you could put the prisoner through rehab or whatever, but he's got to want to change. He wanted to change by the end of this. I mean, I don't know if he could ever have gotten there had he not ended up in the TVA.
Yeah, I think it definitely kind of it definitely like happened a lot quicker than in like previously in the MCU. Like you could argue in Ragnarok when Odin dies, that was when Loki started like a sort of turn a bit, but it wasn't a full one. He was still like devious Loki. Whereas this, I think, because in the very first episode, he's stripped of all his Asgardian like links, and he's literally put in the same like uniform as everyone else, and it's almost like to humanize him, and that's what really makes it such a good like sort of character arc, is that they took all of like the sort of entitlement, the royalty, the everything that made Loki away from him.
Yeah.
And even like to the fact he couldn't use his magic within the TVA. Like they literally stripped him of every single characteristic he had and made him just another guy. And I think that's why he kind of did take that 180, because he was humbled immediately.
Yeah.
And there's so many nice touches that they've added because, of course, they did, because it's Marvel and they think about this stuff, because Marvel does nothing if they don't do fan service. A lot of this, and they don't do it because it's, we got to make them happy. They don't do it like that. This is not, Avi Arad insisting that Sam Raimi use Venom in Spider-Man 3. That's not what this is. This is Marvel saying, hey, these people have stuck with us before we were in the movies, before we were on TV. We're going to do right by them. We're going to flesh out these characters and do right by the sponsors and by the corporate guys. We're going to do right by but the fans got us here. We're going to make them happy. And there's so many things they throw in here. The episode 1's title is Glorious Purpose, for crying out loud. That famous line, I'm Loki of Asgard, and I'm Bud with glorious purpose. Like that's that rings in my head. I've used that. I've tweeted that. I've said it on Facebook, and a lot of people get it, and people go, what's that? Because, duh. But like the callback to that and the way they just poke fun at him. Mobius just pokes fun at him in the first episode. A glorious purpose. I got it. Yeah, you got it. And there's like a drawer full of Infinity Stones and everything that we've loved about this MCU. Heck with it. It's all different here. I mean, he really does come crash landing to Earth and evolve or die, right? I mean, he doesn't really have a choice.
That was the thing in that first episode that got me, when he was that realization. He was like, they're Infinity Stones. He's like, oh yeah, he uses one as like a paperweight. That was the moment for me where it was just like, hang on, they've just spent 10 years building up the Infinity Stones as the most powerful thing ever, and these guys have literally got drawers of them. And that was the moment for me where Loki just went,
yeah.
That's right. It. And then fine. I thought I was powerful. I've got nothing.
You know what? I think it's this studio's willingness to poke fun at itself that keeps it refreshing. Like, they take themselves seriously when they need to, but then when it's time for a laugh, they're going to let you have a laugh. And if it's at their expense, they'll take it, because it's about making the fans happy. So, Jay, we've only got 6 episodes in season 1, and I'm left wanting to see the other 8 or whatever. And because it didn't feel like just 6. I mean, they went by rapid fire, but I was so invested. I mean, is this the way to go from now on with these shows? Is get in, get out, make your point, get out? Because it feels awesome, this format.
Yeah, I really like the whole self-contained story, but they're giving it a little bit more time because they feel like the need to. Like, WandaVision was 9, right?
I think so.
I think it was 9.
8, 9, yeah.
And then Falcon and Winter Soldier was 6. I don't know how many episodes the other ones are going to have, but it does seem quite cool to have it as like almost like as I say, a self-contained story, but it's still adding to the bigger picture in its own little way. And I say its own little way, Loki's like been like a grenade going off in the MCU.
Yeah,
and just sends everything everywhere.
It's like it's a mini series, if you like. I mean, it's a similar thing with the Netflix like Marvel TV series. Like, what were they? They weren't many, like 12, like
12.
slightly longer.
10, 12, I think.
10, 12, yeah. But obviously these are much bigger characters in the grand scheme of things, and they're clearly doing a big job, Loki aside, of tying them into the grander films later down the line. But we were saying about DC earlier and how they get the TV series so right. But their TV series for everything, like 22, 24 episodes, like they're huge.
Yeah.
But I think it's that's the difference. So DC stuff is for like television network, like weekly, like television stuff. This is streaming stuff, on demand stuff. And Marvel recognize that audience is there now, where they can put out a 6-episode mini season, but they like the fans know, well, in a month or so, 2 months or so, there's a film coming out, and there's a reference to this, and it's going to tie to this, and then we're going to give them another series of a different set of characters. That's also going to tie in, and then that's going to tie into a film. So they've nailed it. Like initially I was like, what do you mean it's a 6-episode series? Give me 12. Give me 20 odd. I'm invested in this. But actually, I'm like, no, you'd just be dragging it out for the sake of it. They did such a good job of containing it within 6 episodes.
6-episode series, they're all feature length. It's like a trilogy of films.
Yeah, that's the thing. You look at it, you just that's they weren't all an hour long. Like some were like 40, 45, an hour-ish, but for argument's sake, let's say they were all an hour long. That's 6 hours of film.
It's like one of the Lord of the Rings films.
Yeah. Or two episodes of Monday Night Raw, whichever.
But that one feels like 12 hours. Does that count?
Yeah.
Just saying.
But yeah, it's incredible what they've done, and I think because, like I said, Loki feels like it's really set the ground for an awful lot of stuff. Not just the next year of films, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, the whole next couple of phases of films. It's incredible to look at what they've done with the 10 years initially of those films and then go, do you know what? We're not going to give you films straight away. We're going to give you TV series. We're going to break things down a little bit, and we're going to do some real character development with these people. And before, there might not have been characters that you were necessarily as bothered with. Like, they were never at the very forefront. Like, yes, Loki was kind of the big bad in the first Avengers, but they weren't kind of like big lead main characters. But now Loki showed up in, like, I don't know, the Avengers 4 or 5, whatever, 4. Yeah. You go, fine. Well, I've just watched a series. He's up there now for me. Before, he was maybe here. Before, I liked watching him. He was entertaining. He was a cool character. Now I have a reason to really care and invest. And that's what's really nice about these Marvel series, is that they make you care about people that you might not necessarily have done as much before, or they flesh it out a little bit more, so that when you then watch a film with them later on where you may not have paid them as much mind, you've watched that series and you go, okay, I get it now. There's a bit more of an investment. And Loki's character for me now is just like up here. I want Loki all the time in every film for the next 10 years.
I want him just showing up as like a TVA agent as an extra in the back of time.
Just, in any film.
Just pruning somebody in the back.
Just pruning someone in the background and disappearing. Just going for one of those invisible doors.
I do think we're probably going to see a few appearances from Loki in the next couple of films. I feel like I feel like they're trying to make sort of like him and Hemsworth and to a lesser degree Tom Holland and Benedict Cumberbatch be like the new sort of Robert Downey Jr. who just shows up at everything. I was like, oh, there he is.
Yeah.
I also, though, the other thing that I am really excited for going ahead is what they do with Kang, because with what they did in phases 1 to 3 with Thanos was faultless. Like, whenever Thanos shown up, you know it was important.
Yeah.
And you knew, like, something big was happening. And I get the impression they're going to do something similar with Kang, where whenever he does appear, it's, okay, I'm paying attention. You've got it all.
Yeah.
I love the idea of Loki, as you guys said, being in the background, not even having dialogue. And they're having a conversation, and they just stop and look, and he's like, carry on. And then he just steps through the portal and he's gone. That's so good.
Yeah.
I also want to just see like a buddy cop movie with him and Mobius. Even if it's just a few like animated shorts, it's just those who are going through different timelines. And maybe we get like them going through timelines of like really like notable points in history, and they're just there just to mess things up or just to see how it pans out. Like the bit where they go to Pompeii and it just they're like, like I know what's gonna happen, and Loki's running around like singing in Latin, just being like, that's gonna blow up, you're gonna die. I'd just love to see like those two just going off different events in history, like the moon landing, and they're there just like, hey, how's it going? You're right.
Right. Yeah.
They could do a really cool like sort of dynamic to Uatu the Watcher with that, couldn't they? Even though he's already been like established in the MCU that Stan Lee was like his like sort of agent, so to speak. It'd be cool if they had like Loki and Mobius take that kind of that kind of mantle. not to replace Stan, just to kind of like, they're carry on that tradition.
Yeah.
I have a sneaking suspicion we've got a lot more to come. I mean, as you said, Troy, and I think you said it perfectly earlier, they've set up so much content for the future. I mean, this universe is massive. The other guy's universe is massive too. But I keep going back to the idea that, and you know, we'll give props where it's due, because for better or worse, WWE will live or die based on one guy. And who knows what will happen that come in the future. It's anybody's guess at this point. But their biggest success and their biggest failures have come under the command of one guy. I mean, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, whether it's TV or the silver screen, Kevin Feige is the Vince McMahon. And he seems to be more open to ideas and not as domineering, which is good. But he's got a vision. He's got creators who have bought into the vision. No pun intended. And after having said all that, I'll say this. I want to see adventures of Crocodile Loki. I think it's important. And if Kevin Feige, can you or can you not envision an animated series like for kids?
That'd be amazing.
Like Superhero Squad, right? Like
absolutely.
But it's a Crocodile Loki. It's awesome.
Give it me now. Like they've just aren't they doing like the MODOK like TV series?
That's right,
the animated one.
Yeah, that's on Disney Plus at the moment.
Give us Crocodile Loki.
I love it.
But pronounce Crocodile Loki like Crocodile Dundee.
Oh,
exactly the
same. That's good.
I love that Mobius didn't have an explanation to that. I was like, I don't remember any of this.
I don't remember that.
No one knew. He was just there. And they just
no one said anything about it. No one even said, well, how do we know it's Loki? Well, he's got the thing on his head. He's got the thing. But no one even said, well, when did he get here? No one even had, well, that's
just
Loki
like,
too.
He's there. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Don't worry
about it.
Don't worry about it.
It's fine.
And did he kill his brother too? Like, is Crocodile Thor dead? Like I don't know. Crocodile. I'm trying to put the words Thor and crocodile together. I can't do it. It's not as good as Throg. So
no. Maybe Crocodile Thor ate Throg, or Crocodile Loki ate Throg.
Could be.
We could speculate for days.
Oh, you can put Throg in there too. There's a whole other kids show that can happen here with just the characters from this. I kind of wanted to stay on the shoulder of the kid Loki. I don't know why, but
he was cool. He's really cool.
Something about him when he's like, what did you do to deserve Armageddon? What he says to him, Your Majesty, like he's being all like that toward him. He just turns around and says, I killed Thor. Like hardcore, like gangster. You know what I mean? And then turn around, and I'm like, I kind of like that they didn't pursue that. I kind of like that Loki didn't say, hang on, you did what?
Drew a line right under that. Oh, okay.
Well, he'll surely be back because Sylvie's still in the void. And so is he. So they'll both be back for season 2.
That's true. Right. I'd hope so.
Because we didn't see there's 2 big things from that end scene. We didn't definitively see He Who Remains die. And he was obviously talking about reincarnation and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And we also didn't see Sylvie leave, but she did have one of the time gimmick things.
She did,
yeah.
But the other thing we haven't touched on yet is the Living Tribunal's head being in the void.
Oh, that's right. A lot of stuff in the void.
Yeah.
Is that the actual Living Tribunal?
Well, if it is, he's not.
Has Kang killed the Living Tribunal?
Got to change his name. He's not living anymore. So
nope.
That's a good point. A good question.
Yeah.
Because that blew me away when I saw the Living Tribunal's head just chilling in the middle of the void. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
We're not going to address that there.
Don't worry about it, mate.
Don't worry about it.
You can have so much fun with just the void. My God, you can have a whole show on just the void, just itself. There's
so much. Like when the camera panned down to like the Loki's like lair underground.
Yeah.
And then there was like Mjolnir, like the hammer there, and then like Thor in the little like glass jar, just like smacking it, trying to get out. Like just so much stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. You got Throg in the jar, you got Mjolnir in the dirt, they look like they have like relics from America in that little bomb shelter they're in. It looks like New York destroyed, or a big city destroyed, I'm guessing.
They had the Avengers Tower with Kang on as well, which was
that's right.
Kang's alter ego.
Yeah. That's man, so much stuff happening there. I mean, you could go back to that in any film you want to. You can have Doctor Strange look at it and see it from a distance. So I don't, correct me if I'm wrong. Did we get Cumberbatch interacting with Hiddleston at all? I don't think they even came face to face, did they?
I don't think they shared the scene.
I don't think they did, no.
Now that's going to be fun because
people like watching theatre.
Well, in Ragnarok, Thor went there, didn't he? But Loki didn't.
He trapped Loki in the falling thing. Loki kept falling forever. Remember?
Yeah.
He's like, I was falling forever.
He
just kept falling, right? I forgot about that.
But even then, like, it was fleeting at best.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they could have some good stuff.
Yeah.
I'm just imagining Loki trying to explain all of this to everyone now, and having to have Doctor Strange go, he's actually not making this up. This is all real. Like,
well, that's the really compelling thing about this is that nobody's going to believe him.
Very true.
Until Kang rocks up and like kills somebody like important or does something really, really bad, no one's going to believe Loki.
Yep.
Yeah. And the one time he's telling the truth, nobody believes him. Right. The God's honest truth, and no one wants to hear it or believes it.
I mean, I'm just trying to think where they're going to place it all, because I mean, Thor's going to have his hands full with Gore the God Butcher, isn't he, in Love and Thunder?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he could be like a big bad for an entire phase if he wanted to do, but one film will do.
I mean,
Yes.
did we get Loki? Did we get Loki in a post-credit scene in the new Thor flick? And that's where we get him.
I wouldn't be surprised if they did something with Loki and maybe the TVA, and then have Loki season 2 like this time next year.
Yeah.
But saying that, I also wouldn't be surprised if it was like Christmas next year, because Ant-Man's February.
All the more reason for all of us to stay healthy and keep kicking as long as we can, so we don't miss any of this cool stuff. Because I'm looking forward to it. Let me get your guys from each of you. What was your highest high about this show as a whole? And did you have any disappointments, like any parts where you're like, oh, I wish they could take that back or change it, or if you even have one? Troy, we'll start with you.
Oh, that's a tough one.
No pressure.
No pressure. My high was we literally just spoken about like everything in the void. Like there was so many little Easter eggs and callbacks and this and that, and just that spectacle of just kind of chaos, and then and getting all the different versions of Loki, and that was a really cool visual. That was a really cool, like, oh, there's a hell of a lot more to this. That was one of the moments for me where it kind of, the realization of, okay, this is really layered. And we knew it was kind of building to that, but to see just being like, oh, you're Loki and you're Loki and that's Loki. That whole thing there was really, really cool. A low point or a disappointment,
or maybe a critique.
Do you know what? I don't like. I really enjoyed it. Out of all the TV series, all the Marvel TV series I've had so far, it's faultless. Like, I mean, I could probably watch back through the whole thing in full and maybe like pick out a few bits, but yeah, it didn't disappoint. Like, the one thing that I was ever so slightly disappointed about was that kind of initial reveal of the, of Sylvie, but then that was quickly turned around within like an episode or two. So I wouldn't say that was an overall negative or an overall bad. No, I don't really have anything other than just give me season 2 now.
Yes, like right now.
Like right now.
James, what do you got, buddy?
Yeah, my low is that I've got to wait for season 2 because geez, that was so, like, you talk about an ending where it is literally just like a bombshell, and there was like so much going on that you couldn't process the like one thing happening and then go, oh my god, what, and then just to go on that statue of Kang, it was like, yeah, this is going to be ridiculous. The high for me, it had to be just the fight scene with all the Lokis. I really enjoyed that. And Richard E. Grant in particular, when he was like doing the sorcery, going, look, do you think they're fighting us? They're not. I'm just running away. Yeah, it was just awesome. I think one thing they did really well from going from WandaVision to this was obviously WandaVision. There was like a lot of like kind of teasers of Mephisto was showing up, and he didn't, and everyone was like, oh, okay. So when there was the teasers of Kang, it was almost like, nah, they're laying this on way too thick. They're gonna do something different. And then when it was Kang, I was like, oh, this is big. This is big.
Yeah.
Because it does tie in. That like you said, Jay, it's heavy, man. Because it does tie into the movies. I guess for me, the high points were two things. One, the relationship between Owen Wilson and Tom Hiddleston their chemistry is off the charts. I love that they got along. I love that Owen Wilson was one of the few people we've ever seen on screen to sort of not belittle him, but sort of put him in his place. I mean, we've seen very few people ever do that, and that weren't related to him in some way. And he did it, and he didn't have any qualms about doing it because he knew he was in control and in charge. And I love how they were friends in the end. I love that. But the scene for me when he's sitting there watching the replay on that screen, I had tears when he had tears. I couldn't help it. And then when he sees his mother killed, and that look of horror on his face where he realizes, I did that. That was me. I may as well just killed her myself. I mean, that blows my mind. I can't even put my head around that. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know really what the next step is. And by the way, in terms of the low, I don't really know that like Troy said, I don't know that I really have a low or not. I think it's just, again, the reveal of Kang wasn't bad for me. It wasn't like a major disappointment. I was kind of hoping it would be yet another Loki. In another reality, it's not Kang at all that's there, and it's not another Loki that's there, but it's Chris Hemsworth as a variant Thor who turned heel.
Yeah.
Now that would have been, the look on everyone's face at home would have been, oh my God, what just happened? I mean,
what the hell happened?
Right?
The double turn.
Oh. And it could have been, oh brother, you thought you could get one up on me, but not anymore. You know, that kind of thing. Oh my God. Like,
oh man.
That would have been
cool.
That would have been epic. I don't know. I was just saying, I don't know where I think this show's going to go in the future. I like that we can just sort of guess and just put forth our best speculation or whatever, but that we don't really know. I love that Marvel keeps us guessing as much as they do, but while also doing fan service. If you had to put forth a guess, Troy, where do you think you have any predictions where season 2 may lead at this point, Troy?
Nope. I really don't know. It's just blown out of proportion. Like, not blown out of proportion, like just blown up. Like, and the implications and ramifications are just huge. It could go absolutely anywhere at this point. Like the forbidden door, or whatever you want to call it, the door is off its hinges. Like this could go absolutely anywhere. That's what makes it so exciting, because it doesn't feel predictable.
Right. Jay, any idea, any predictions for season 2, or just going to buckle in and hang on and see what happens?
Yeah, I think that's the best way to do it. I feel like Loki is going to be spending a little bit of time trying to convince Mobius and everybody at the TVA, and then there's going to be a lot of like trying to find Sylvie and tell her what, like, make her aware of what she's done.
Yeah. It's definitely going to be interesting to see what happens next. I plan on going back and watching the whole show again. And I don't know if I'll binge them all in one night, but I'm going to start watching them again just to get, I'm definitely going to watch the last episode again. I'm going to watch it again after the show here today. Mm-hmm. Let's take this thing home, gentlemen. Jay, if you can sum this up for me in a few words here, give me your last word. Give me your last word on Loki.
It was just incredible, wasn't it? To sum it up in very, very, very few words, incredible. It's one of the best things that the MCU, like, after Endgame, I was really worried, like, where do they go from here? And if this is any indication, it's going to be just fine.
Troy, what about you?
It's a beautiful story of a man's change of heart, change of character, change of mindset. And to see him do a full 180, and it's so well laid out, but I still haven't got a clue what's going on.
I like being in the dark here, and I'm totally fine with that, because honestly, as I've said, not just on this episode, but numerous times in the past, of all the things that I follow, whether it's TV series, books, movies, any form of entertainment, video games, pro wrestling, there's very few studios or entities I can say have let me down the least number of times. Marvel has let me down the least number of times. The books may be hit or miss depending on what writer and artist is handling it. People have their opinions on the films, and I get that. But overall, for me personally, the MCU, 9 times out of 10, always delivers. I can't wait to see what happens next. I really enjoyed this show. Kids, if you have not, well, first of all, if you haven't been to the show, we just kind of told you all of it. So you'll have to go back and binge it again now that we've ruined it. But yeah, to everybody, you know, man, this is where it's at. And what's great is you don't have to be a nerd or a geek anymore to appreciate this stuff, because as we said during this show, This is master storytelling at its finest. This is how you do it. Despite whether it's comic book or not, it doesn't make a difference. Sci-fi, fantasy, whatever you want to call this stuff. This is great storytelling, and I'm here for it. And again, I can't wait to see what happens next. And that is Loki. Hey, thanks for listening to the show. Check out our social media on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at 6M Podcast. We'll see you next time.